Jean Otis reports to ACCA headquarters where the staff learns that the inspection department is to be terminated by the 5 chief officers. It was created during times of instability almost 100 years ago as it is no longer required. At the agricultural Famasu district, Jean meets Heir, the branch supervisor, and examines the records. He finds discrepancies that indicate staff have falsified data and been involved in the black market for cigarettes. Cigarettes are an expensive item, and Jean's continuous smoking of them in public draws some criticism and jealousy from an ACCA rookie rail. Chief Officer Grossiller cancels the inspection department termination and has Jean put under observation. Jean carries out a spot audit of the Badon branch but finds that the ACCA Director General Mauve is doing the same. Meanwhile, people start remarking on the increasing number of fires that have been occurring. Rail picks up a cigarette lighter left in a cafe by Jean. Back at ACCA headquarters, Chief Officer Grossiller receives news of a suspected coup attack. Grossiller questions Mauve about the rumored coup d'etat because the nation is at peace. Jean watches as schoolchildren learn about the history and function of ACCA. A fire is announced in the North Sector, and Rail considers it a missed opportunity to frame Jean for the fire using his abandoned cigarette lighter. After a robbery at a cigarette store, Rail corners the young thief but lets him go, keeping the bag of stolen cigarettes. Jean finds and confronts Rail about his questionable activities in confiscating stolen goods and the stolen lighter. However, as Rail is not under his jurisdiction, Jean leaves him with just a warning. At a chief officers meeting, Grossiller says the suspected coup d'etat is more than a rumor and believes Jean Otis is involved. Later, he assigns Agent Crow to his surveillance. On an inspection trip to the Jumoku district, Jean meets branch supervisor Corey and helps their branch with a computer malfunction. That night, Jean meets his old friend Nino, who tells Jean that he is no longer being watched. However, he is in fact the Agent Crow assigned to watch Jean. When Jean encounters Mauve in a shop, she asks if he is free to meet in the evening on the weekend. The other chief officers are not sure whether to believe Grossiller's suspicions about Jean. Jean has dinner with Mauve, who asks for his help in finding out any information about the rumored coup d'etat on his regional visits. She is concerned that the coming-of-age commemorative ceremony on Dao of the king's grandson Prince Xuan, and the only male heir, and an idiot, will be an opportunity for powerful figures in outlying regions to take action. He accepts her request. Meanwhile, Prince Xuan plans to ascend the throne at the ceremony, disband the ACCA, and take control of the Privy Council. At the ceremony, the king welcomes everyone but does not abdicate as Prince Xuan expected. Jean encounters Nino and Lotta at the ceremony, and Mauve also sees Nino but recognizes him as an ACCA agent, which he reports to Grossiller. On one of Jean's many cigarette breaks, Lilium confronts Jean about suspicions that he is involved in the suspected coup d'etat, but Lilium says that he believes it's a rumor started by Grossiller to gain more power for ACCA, and asks for Jean's help. Lotta prepares a box of gifts for the building owner whom she has never met, which is delivered by Nino. Jean is in Sutsu district, which has strong restrictions on imports so that traditions can be maintained. Meanwhile, Lilium tells the 5 chief officers that he does not believe Jean is involved in the suspected coup d'etat. While on inspection, Jean is abducted by 3 coup plotters. He meets Biscuit, their leader, who says they only want greater freedom for Sutsu, and the removal of Buer, their self-serving district representative, no more. While in their custody, the coup commences, and Jean escapes, assisted by branch supervisor Warbler. The coup fails and the leaders are captured. In return for not informing headquarters of the attempted coup, the district officers allow Jean to leave and branch supervisor Warbler keeps his position. Officer Magi follows Lotta to a pancake parlor on orders from Prince Xuan, wants to find out her identity. He tries thick wheat toast for the first time and finds it amazing. Back at the capital, Jean tells Al that Warbler may not be ready for more responsibility. He is reluctant to report the fiasco of the failed coup in Sutsu. Lilium questions Jean about Sutsu and reveals that Jean is being shadowed, possibly by someone he knows. Jean's next inspection is in Bura district, and Crow follows him. Bura has cold weather and is substantially self-sufficient in food, unlike poor districts. Magi introduces the prince to Toast, telling him that Lotta loves it, and also telling the prince what he's found out about her. In Bura, Jean realizes that he's being watched, and confronts his friend Nino, who admits that he's been assigned to observe Jean, but does not know why. Back in the capital, Jean asks Nino to take Lotta to dinner every night while he's on his next assignment in Rakusu district. In Rakusu, Jean sees Chief Officer Grossiller and approaches him. 13 years ago, Jean's parents died in a train accident that happened on the Peshi-Rakusu border. Grossiller was the Rakusu branch chief at the time and acted with integrity, taking full responsibility. Jean tells Grossiller that he admired him for doing that and that he believes that neither of them is involved in a coup plot. Grossiller thinks Jean is a little naive. At a New Year's party in Jean's apartment building, Many members of staff are also invited and have a good time. Director General Mauve believes that the coup is a rumor but still believes that something is afoot in Korra district. She also suspects that Jean is not loyal to her after he provides her with no new information from his inspection. On an inspection in Heir district, Jean senses that he is seen as a conduit for information between districts and tries to gather information for Mauve but gets very little. Meanwhile, Prince Xuan arranges for his portrait to be hung in a prominent place in the Dao family portrait hall. While in Dao, Jean considers his position concerning the rumors of a coup. On a day out with Nino, they find themselves in a cake shop where the king decides to stop on a rare outing and he invites them to sit with him. Afterward, Jean takes some of the snowball cakes back home for Lotta. Jean travels to Korra district and meets Branch Chief Grease. Prince Xuan visits his aunt to hear about the incident 30 years ago when her younger sister died along with her loyal guard, a Ben. In Korra, Jean meets Director General Mauve in the street, who reveals that he has royal blood and is first in the line for succession, much to his surprise. She realizes that he is not involved in the coup plot and knows that he has kept some information from her. Back in the palace, Prince Xuan suspects that Lotta is related because she resembles a portrait of the dead princess, but is horrified to learn Jean is her older brother. Meanwhile, in Korra, Jean encounters Nino, who prepares to reveal some information. 33 years ago, the second princess of Dao Kingdom, Shni, began to take an interest in national affairs, to the concern of the king's advisor, Qwalm. With the agreement of the king, Qwalm asked Abend, the princess's aide, to make it appear that she died in a boating accident so that she could be removed from the royal register. Abend also took his family servant and son with him. The princess is happy to live as a citizen in Badon, and she and Abend part ways, but she is kept under observation during her life there. She met a young man and they married and had a blonde-haired son, Jean, and then a daughter, Lotta. Prince Xuan was born 10 years later to the youngest princess. The family servant's son Nino joined the young Jean at school to watch over him. Unfortunately, the former Princess Shni, her husband, and the family servant died in a train derailment, leaving the children orphans. Nino explains all of this to Jean, including the fact that he has no claim to the Dao throne. Prince Xuan tells his aunt, the first princess, about the former Princess Shni's children, Jean and Lotta. She believes they may become obstacles to her ambitions, which concerns Meiji, and decides to act. Meanwhile, Jean asks Owl to spend time with Lotta while he's away on district inspections, and coincidentally Meiji arranges for Rail to protect Lotta. In Peshi district, Jean meets District Chief Herring, who pledges the district's support to Jean as heir to the Dao throne. Back in Badon, Lotta and Rail are abducted in a car, and Lotta learns that she has royal blood. Fortunately, with the car caught in traffic, Owl intervenes and frees them. Mauve learns about the abduction attempt, revealing that the royal family also knows about the oddest sibling. The 5 chief officers meet and Grossler proposes that ACCA stage a coup d'etat and establish Jean Otis as king. The aim is to prevent Prince Xuan from ascending the throne, abolishing ACCA, and creating an autocracy. They all agree. Later, Grossler and Lilium plan their strategy, including obtaining the compliance of Director General Mauve. During the discussion, Lilium is revealed to be a major player in plotting the coup. In Yakara district, the district chiefs promise Jean their support. Grossler and Lilium decide that any coup should be led by ACCA, and that the prime objective should be to maintain order and the lives of citizens. Jean travels to a nearby desert like Pranetta, where people live underground. He learns that with little to win or lose, Pranetta has decided not to participate in the rumored coup but will support Jean. Back home, Jean and Lotta matter-of-factly discuss their royal heritage. Suddenly, the king announces that he will not attend the ACCA centenary ceremony, which creates concern among the ACCA 5 chief officers and implications for their coup attempt. Meanwhile, the first princess, fearing threats from Prince Xuan and second Princess Shni's children Jean and Lotta, plans their elimination should the king pass away. At the Furawao district office, Jean meets Lilium's brother, the district chief, and learns that Furawao is leading the coup. Meanwhile, the first princess's assassins are following his movements. Their assassination attempt fails when Nino intercepts the bullets meant for Jean, but the incident is kept secret. Following the attempt, Jean decides to support the coup and accepts a Furawao cigarette to accompany the ones he has received from the other 12 districts, indicating their support. Meanwhile, ACCA staff are already discussing their advancement opportunities after the coup takes place. Sutsu branch supervisor Warbler feels that the coup is ill-advised and that ACCA may just be protecting its existence, but eventually decides to support it. Later, Grossler tells Mauve that he is concerned about the motives of Lilium and his intentions to control Jean Otis. Lilium addresses ACCA about the arrangements for the upcoming coup at the coronation ceremony to install Jean as the heir to the throne, but Jean proposes that the announcement of his position be delayed. On the day of the proposed coup, Prince Xuan is surrounded by ACCA forces, but Mauve intervenes and tactfully gets the prince's assurance that ACCA will continue to manage the country. This avoids a confrontation, reducing the prince to a figurehead only, thus thwarting Lilium and the Furuwa plan for control. Frustrated, Lilium withdraws, and Mauve is made head of ACCA, dispensing with the 5 chief officers. Later, Jean explains that he was involved in Mauve's counterplan. Furuwa secedes from the Dala Federation. However, the impact is less than expected, especially after the discovery of underground resources in Pranetta. As Jean and Lotta's royal heritage is not revealed, they are able to continue their normal lives. Jean tells Mauve how much he respects Grossular for supporting him when his parents were killed, and hints that he is in love with Mauve, but understands that it will probably go unrequited. And that's all for today, guys. Stay tuned to get more new videos. Stay safe and keep watching.